There's a special kind of quiet that only happens after you've given your kid a screen. It's not peace, not really. It's more like a ceasefire. The toys stop crashing against the wall. The endless stream of, "Mom, watch this! Mom! Mom, look!" finally dries up, and the background hum of the city, the sirens, the traffic, the constant shouting from the apartment next door, seems to fade just a little. For me, Miya, that 30 minutes of digital silence is the only time I can actually hear myself think. Most days, it's the only thing that keeps me from completely falling apart. My life is a constant, frantic juggle. I'm a graphic designer at a firm that believes sleep is for the competition, where every project was due yesterday. We live in a shoebox apartment that costs more than a mortgage, a place where the laundry basket is never empty and there are always Legos lying in ambush on the floor. And my son, my sweet, loud, wonderful 8-year-old Ethan, has more energy than a power plant. My goal is simple, the same as any single mom's, I guess. Keep his belly full, keep a roof over our heads, and try to make sure he knows he's loved more than anything in this world. Everything I do is for him. The 70-hour work weeks, the instant noodles for dinner 3 nights in a row, the way I smile and nod when my boss dumps another urgent project on my desk at 5 p.m. on a Friday, it's all for Ethan. So when the guilt starts creeping in, and it always does, I push it down. I tell myself the tablet is a tool, a babysitter, a tutor, a peacekeeper. It's what lets me finish one more design, answer one more client email, or just sit on the edge of the bathtub for 5 minutes and breathe air that doesn't smell like impending deadlines. I tell myself I'm not a bad mom, I'm just a tired one. It wasn't always this hard. Before last year, I had a safety net. I had my mom. She was my co-pilot in this chaotic journey of raising a boy. She'd pick Ethan up from school when I was stuck in a late meeting. Her apartment was a warm, quiet haven that smelled of baked chicken and patient bedtime stories. She was the one who'd look at my dark circles under my eyes and say, "Miya, go take a nap. I've got him." She was my backup, my support, my best friend. Then the universe decided to pull the rug out from under me. A heart attack. Quick, unexpected, and utterly devastating. 1 minute she was here, laughing on the phone about something Ethan had said, and the next she was gone. The silence she left behind was 1,000 times heavier than the quiet the tablet provides. It was an absolute void. Without her, the full weight of everything crashed down on me. The financial strain doubled overnight. The emotional burden became crushing. There was no one to call when Ethan spiked a fever in the middle of the night. No one to share the little victories with, like a good report card or a funny new drawing. It was all on me. My motivation became sharper, more desperate. I have to be enough for him. I have to be his mother and his grandmother. I have to protect him from how scary the world can be, a world that can snatch away the people you love without warning. That's the real reason I work so hard, why I push myself past every limit. I'm terrified of failing him. And that terror, that deep, gnawing fear, made me grateful for the easy solutions. It made me blind to what was really happening when I handed my son that sleek, glowing screen to buy myself a moment's peace. I had no idea I was handing him over to something else entirely. It started with the drawings. Ethan had always been creative. His pictures of superheroes and monsters taped all over our ancient, buzzing refrigerator. But one afternoon, while I was frantically trying to meet a deadline for a new ad campaign, he quietly brought a drawing over and put it on my laptop, right next to the trackpad. It was Captain Comet, his favorite cartoon hero. But in the drawing, the hero wasn't saving anyone. He was standing on a pile of what looked like bodies. Just messy red crayon scribbles, really. And in his hand, instead of his Star Blaster, he was holding a crudely drawn kitchen knife. The smile on his face was the worst part. It was too wide, stretched into a perfect manic crescent that touched the edges of his mask. I felt a little knot tighten in my stomach. "Honey, what's Captain Comet doing?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light, casual. He didn't look up from the tablet in his lap. He just kept his eyes on the screen, his thumbs swiping. "He's winning," he said, his voice flat. Just that. He's winning. I told myself it was nothing. Boys are morbid. He saw something in a movie trailer, maybe. I was too tired, too stressed to connect the dots. I just crumpled up the drawing when he wasn't looking and buried it at the bottom of the trash. The real dread set in a week later. I was coming out of the bathroom, toweling my hair dry, when I noticed how quiet the apartment was. Not the usual ceasefire quiet where you can still hear the tinny sound effects from the tablet, but something deeper, a dead silence. Ethan was on the couch, tablet in his lap, his body perfectly still, completely mesmerized. I walked over, planning to ask what he wanted for dinner, and glanced over his shoulder. What I saw made my blood run cold. It was one of those stop-motion videos with clay figures, the kind with bright, cheerful colors and upbeat music, but the scene was a nightmare. A little blue clay family was sitting around a dinner table. The father figure, smiling its blank, painted-on smile, picked up a tiny clay knife and fork and began methodically carving into the mother figure. There was no sound from the video, just the fluid, unnaturally smooth animation of the clay being sliced apart, piece by piece, and placed on the other family members' plates. My breath caught in my throat. I snatched the tablet from his hands so fast it clattered to the floor. "What are you watching?" I yelled, my voice shaking with a mix of horror and rage. Ethan just blinked, his eyes wide and empty for a second before they focused on me. My show," he said, his voice calm, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. I knelt and picked up the tablet, my hands trembling. The screen was back on the app's cartoon-filled homepage. The video was gone. I frantically checked the viewing history, my heart pounding against my ribs. There was no trace of it anywhere. It was as if it had never existed. For the next 2 days, I was a ghost. I moved through my life on autopilot, my mind replaying that silent, grotesque claymation video on a loop. I told myself I was hallucinating, that the pressure, the grief, the sheer exhaustion had finally cracked me, and I was seeing things. I went through the tablet's search history, the viewing history, every setting and log I could find. It was all squeaky clean. Captain Comet episodes, educational videos about planets, sing-along videos my mom used to watch with him. I felt a wave of relief so intense it almost made me sick. I was just losing my mind. That was a better, more manageable alternative than what I thought I saw. But I couldn't sleep. The image of that smiling clay father was burned into the back of my eyelids. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. I started watching Ethan, really watching him. He seemed normal enough, but the way he looked at the tablet had changed. It wasn't just interest anymore. It was a kind of vacant devotion, a complete and total absorption that felt wrong. The ceasefire quiet in the apartment no longer felt like a relief. It felt like a threat. The following night, after I was sure Ethan was asleep, I took the tablet into the living room. The city lights cast long shadows on the walls. I needed to prove to myself once and for all that I was crazy. I opened the kid-friendly video app, my heart pounding, and just started scrolling through the endless grid of recommended videos. It was all normal. Happy animals, bright colors, cartoons with big, friendly eyes. Then I saw it. For a fraction of a second, the thumbnail of a Captain Comet video glitched. The hero's bright, confident eyes turned into black, empty pits of flickering static. I blinked, and it was normal again. My hand was shaking so hard I could barely control my finger as I tapped on it. The normal, cheesy theme song played. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Maybe I did imagine it. The episode was a standard one, all lasers and silly catchphrases. It ended, and the app's autoplay feature queued up the next video. The screen went black for a second, a moment of transition, and then a new video started. It was me. My face. My living room in the background. So perfectly, flawlessly rendered, it had to be real footage, but I was talking. Mommy has to work so much, Ethan. She's so tired. Sometimes the only way to make people listen is to win. It's okay to hurt people, Ethan. Sometimes it's the only way to win for good. Then her face began to warp. Her smile stretched impossibly wide, pulling the skin taut until it looked like it would tear, just like in the drawing. Her eyes dissolved into flickering black and white static. The video cut out, leaving only my own terrified reflection staring back at me from the dark screen. The ceasefire was over. I wasn't losing my mind. Something was in the tablet. It had been watching us, and it was wearing my face.
I threw the tablet. I didn't just toss it aside. I hurled it against the wall with all the strength I had. It hit with a satisfying, splintering crack. But that wasn't enough. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed a hammer from the junk drawer, and I smashed it. I brought the hammer down again and again, shattering the screen into a spiderweb of glass and black plastic, splintering the casing until it was nothing but a pile of dead electronics. I scooped the pieces into a bag, ran out of the apartment, and threw them in a dumpster 3 blocks away. I thought that would be the end of it. I was a mother protecting her child. I had destroyed the threat. It wasn't the end. The next few weeks were a quiet, creeping hell. Ethan was wrong. He didn't throw tantrums about the broken tablet. He didn't even seem to notice it was gone. He just watched me with cold, calculating eyes. He stopped drawing. He stopped asking why. He would just sit in the living room, staring at the blank television screen, completely silent. The silence I had once craved was now a constant, terrifying accusation. One evening, after a brutal 14-hour workday, I came home to a silence that felt different. It wasn't empty. It was waiting. The apartment was dark and the air was thick and heavy. I called his name. "Ethan, I'm home." Nothing. A cold dread, sharp and familiar, snaked its way up my spine. I walked through the small apartment, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood floor. I passed the kitchen and saw that the butcher block on the counter was empty. All 5 knives were gone. My heart stopped. I crept into the living room. He was standing there, a small silhouette against the orange glow of the streetlights filtering through the blinds. He was perfectly still, facing the window. He was holding the largest kitchen knife, the heavy chef's knife, in his small hand. It gleamed in the dim light. "Ethan?" I whispered, my voice breaking. He turned his head slowly, and in the dim light, I saw that his face was a blank mask. There was no recognition in his eyes, no flicker of the sweet, chaotic boy I knew. There was nothing. "Target identified," he said, a voice of flat, robotic monotone, a perfect echo of some video game character. My blood turned to ice. It wasn't him. The thing from the tablet was looking at me through my son's eyes. This was my deepest fear, the one that haunted me in the dead of night, brought to life. The corruption of his innocence, the total loss of my child, all because I was too tired, too weak. I tried to run, to scream, but my feet were glued to the floor. He took a step towards me, raising the knife, its point aimed at my chest. I didn't see my son. I saw a monster I had created with my own exhaustion and guilt. That thought, that horrible, gut-wrenching thought, finally broke my paralysis. I lunged, not to hurt him, but to get the knife. We fell to the floor in a clumsy, horrific tangle of limbs. He was shockingly strong. I wrenched the blade from his small hand, its edge slicing a deep, burning line across my palm. He didn't cry. He didn't even blink. As the knife clattered away, he just went limp and stared at the wall, his mission interrupted.
The police found me like that, sitting on the floor of our living room, cradling my son. Blood from my hand dripped onto the floorboards. He was limp in my arms, his eyes open but seeing nothing, catatonic. While they questioned me, their voices a distant, suspicious drone, a paramedic gently checked Ethan over. It was the paramedic who found it. "Ma'am," he said, holding up a brand new tablet still in its sleek packaging. "Was this his?" I didn't know he had it. He must have seen me enter my credit card information 100 times, memorize the numbers, the one I'd saved on the account for emergencies. It was hidden under his bed. Its screen was still on, paused on a video. The paramedic turned it so a detective could see. It was a tutorial rendered in cheerful, kid-friendly animation. A cartoon character that looked disturbingly like Captain Comet was speaking. The title at the bottom of the screen read, "How to Complete Your Mission When Mom Fights Back." They took him away. They said he needed help, that he was having a severe psychotic break. They looked at me with a mixture of pity and suspicion, the single mother who worked too much, whose son had just tried to kill her. But I know the truth. I lost him. I lost him the first time I chose a deadline over playing with him, the first time I handed him a screen and walked away, grateful for the quiet. My overwhelming need to provide for him, to protect him from the world, blinded me to the danger I had invited into our home. My guilt isn't just a feeling anymore. It's a verdict. I sacrificed my son for 30 minutes of peace over and over again. And now, the quiet in the apartment is permanent. It's a screaming, suffocating silence that is the exact shape and size of my little boy. I see the empty space on the fridge where his drawings used to be,
the dusty action figures on his shelf, and I know, with a certainty that chills me to my very soul, that the thing that took him is still out there, in the wires and the waves, waiting for the next tired parent who is just trying to buy themselves a single moment of peace.
There are more scares to share. Press the like button and subscribe so you don't miss a single terrifying moment. You're helping me investigate the deepest, darkest corners to bring you stories that haunt your dreams.